Good afternoon. I'm News 8 Steve Price along with Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis. We want to update you on the weather situation out there across our county because, as you know, things are very dangerous. We have high fire risk all across the county. We've seen fires breaking out all across Southern California as well. So, Carlene, the big question, where do we stand right now here in the county?
We are still under our red flag warning, Steve. So that's with very dry condition, relative humidity values. We're seeing single digits popping up. Also talking about the high winds. So everything that you see highlighted that's in pink, that is under the red flag warning. The inland valleys, also the mountains, all the way until 6 p.m. for tomorrow night. So not even tonight are we getting a break. Still very dry conditions. Little in the way of any recovery as we hit our overnight hours, which we typically get from the marine air kind of moving in more. None of that because offshore flow will continue. Strong Santa Ana winds as well. So that's also at the same time we have the high wind warning. Same areas all the way until 6 p.m. And for today, we've had wind gusts about 25, 35 miles per hour. Excuse me, those are sustained wind speeds. The gusts have been about 55 miles per hour, even isolated gusts into the 70s for our local mountains. Which
is also a good warning for folks in those high-profile vehicles who are heading out on the 8 because we've been hearing about trucks that have been blown over up in the LA area where it's really blowing, but it's a concern down here as well.
And I personally have driven on the 8 coming from Imperial County, moving in towards San Diego County. So I know both hands on the steering wheel.
You got to put them both on.
Exactly. You have to be careful out there. It's been really dangerous, and you have high-profile vehicles. You have semi-trucks that are moving through the area. Just any type of car, vehicle whatsoever could just really be moved around.
All right, I know you got a lot more maps to show, but because we are talking about wind, I want to show folks this video. This is out of Ramona area this morning, and you can see the wind was really going out there. In fact, check out this box that just went flying over here, and you can see what the conditions are like out there. It's been a really tough day.
Yes, it really, and unfortunately, we're not out of the woods just yet because we still have to get through tonight. Still talking about wind gusts. It's not supposed to be as windy tonight, so we are talking about gusts coming down from the 75 miles per hour we've been talking about to about 50 miles per hour. So it's still fairly high. That's why we still are on alert. But even into tomorrow, gusts into about 40. So that's when we start to get that recovery by tomorrow afternoon.
So the concern, of course, the fire danger. Now, the good news is we haven't really had anything here in San Diego County. Unfortunately, up to the north, these pictures from Simi Valley. This fire just broke out this morning. They're calling it the Easy Fire because it broke out on Easy Road, but there is nothing easy about fighting this fire. As you can see, the terrain very tough up there, making the drops, using that air attack to try and get a hold of this fire. 7,000 homes threatened at this point. One of the big concerns they were talking about this morning, that Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, which is up there. The fire actually burned right up to the back side of the library, but the crews were able to hold it, so they did not have any damage there. So definitely some good news there, but a lot of people have been evacuated from these areas. The good news is that they at least knew from what happened with the Getty fire, hey, it's that time. Everybody's really thinking about what do I grab when I need to go, if I need to go.
And that's why we're on high alert, because this is what could happen locally. And this is what we're seeing across California with these fires that are coming up. You have the high wind speeds because of the Santa Ana winds being forecast to be the strongest Santa Ana winds that we've had so far this fire season. And then you're coupling that with very dry air. We did not have an active monsoon season. So we did have a few days where we had some shower activity and some storms that ate it in. But for the most part, still a lot of dry brush.
And we had a lot of rain earlier, so that brush has really been growing as well. Let's go ahead and take folks back to some of the maps that you were showing earlier so we can talk a little bit more about what's coming, because obviously we're not out of the woods just yet.
No, not at all. And taking a look at some of the wind speeds that we've had clocked in for today over the past 12 hours. So this is Santa Ana Mountains, 73 miles per hour.
70, that's almost a hurricane force.
Exactly, with a wind gust. That's extremely strong. And then even for our county, we're talking about 60s, 62 for Hellhole Canyon, Alpine 64 for the inland valleys, also Pine Valley at 43 miles per hour.
This is the area we were talking about, those high-profile vehicles, 43 miles an hour. Very dangerous out there.
And you have to keep both hands on the steering wheel. We've talked about that. High-profile vehicles, also just really making things very dry out there. Temperatures haven't been an issue. That's a good thing.
That's been interesting because when we think Santa Ana winds, we think, boy, it's going to be really hot. But the temperatures actually, at least from a firefighting standpoint, have been pretty mild for the crews.
Well, the reason that is because on Sunday we had that trough of low pressure and we had the temperatures just drop so much. Strong marine layer. So we're building back from those cooler than average temperatures. We were well below average on Sunday. And then as we get back to it, we are a little warmer, but we're not talking about the 90s and triple digits that we had last week. So mid 70s west of the mountains today for the inland valleys for highs, low 70s for downtown, even being possible as well, even right along the coast. But those wind speeds, they are still high. So sustained wind speed we have currently at 23 miles per hour for Ramona. Mount Laguna is at 21 miles per hour. And it's those gusts, Steve, very high wind gusts, 52 miles per hour.
What I find interesting, Carlene, too, is that you've got the Santa Ana winds, right? That's why the wind is blowing
offshore,
toward the coast. But then as you get toward the coast, you can see here in San Diego, it's sort of starting to turn around a little bit. So is this a sign that this is where we're heading?
Well, we have to get to that point first. It's not going to be anytime soon because the Santa Ana winds are going to win out. And that's also part of the reason why we're not seeing a red flag warning or a high wind warning for the entire county. We're seeing it just, oops. There we go.
We'll take you back.
Wait a minute. So basically, we're just seeing it for the areas. I was trying to highlight it, but I guess it's not going to work out right now. So that's why we're seeing the red flag warning as well as the high wind warning for the inland valleys and also the mountains. So there is a little bit of an onshore flow right here, but that's only making it not as dry. So we're still talking about really low relative humidity values towards the coast, but it's not the single digits that we're seeing for the inland valleys and the mountains.
And we see these slower wind speeds along the coast, but for the coast, this is still very strong. We don't normally see stuff like this.
That's true, especially for Del Mar. You have gusts that are up to 20 miles per hour. Carlsbad, 21 mile per hour wind gusts right now. So we're still seeing some of that move towards coastal communities. It's just not as strong as we're seeing for the mountains and inland valleys.
Any more maps? Otherwise, I'm going to show folks the power outages.
Let's go ahead and show.
Okay, so let's show you what's going on because, you know, as we've told you several times, San Diego Gas and Electric has been turning people's power off in anticipation of these winds coming because they don't want to start any fires. What you see, all these blue dots all across this map, these are places where power has already been turned off by SDG&E. Watch right here in Ramona as we pop up, you can see their power went out starting at 9:15 in the morning. It's not going to come back on until November 1st. We're talking not tomorrow, the day after. We're talking on Friday, 6 p.m.
Yes.
That's very frustrating for these folks who are living out there to not have electricity. Their food in their refrigerator is obviously going to start spoiling at some point in time. But at this point, SDG&E says, hey,
not taking any
chances. This is more important because we don't want to have any of these fires coming out. But I mean, all across, you got Pauma Valley, Valley Center, La Mesa. There's an outage in Poway, but that one actually is just something that happened. The crew's still trying to figure out what happened there. But we got 1,336 people, so a lot of people without power at this point. And from looking at the blue dots and what SDG&E is putting out there, they're not going to have power for quite a while.
And that's something we have to also keep in the back of our heads is going into the weekend. So the winds will calm down, and that's why everything looks to expire at 6 p.m. on Thursday on Halloween tomorrow night. But past that, we will still have breezy winds. We'll still have an offshore flow. We will also still have very dry conditions. It's a slow recovery this time, where everything kind of hit all on Sunday, where we had relative humidity values into the 70s, into the 60s with percentages, even 90s. We're not going to see that quick recovery as we go into the next few days. So that is also something to be mindful of. We'll have a moderate risk of extending out our fire weather concerns into the weekend.
Yeah, you're bringing up a good point there because usually when we have these Santa Ana conditions, they last for 2 days at the most, and then we get that relief. But man, we're just getting hit one after another after another. I mean, when I was talking to Sean last week, he said, and then we'll have Santa Anas this week all week. Two different events coming through, so we're just not getting a break. And how long does the Santa Ana season go? Can you remind folks, like, are we toward the end of it, or could we be looking at more through December even?
Well, we have to wait on that first front that's going to start to move through, and we start to see more rainfall, and those fronts kind of making their way across Southern California around the middle to end of November. So we still have to be on guard as we go through the next few weeks because this could continue.
Everybody's got to stay vigilant. The good news, as I mentioned right at the top, we haven't had any fires so far here in San Diego County. Everybody's doing a good job. That said, we do have our crews stationed all over the county. We've got crews up in the North County, East County. We've sent some crews south as well. We're monitoring all the situations out there. And of course, they will have live reports coming up for you tonight at 5 o'clock. Carlene, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you guys learned a little bit there and we had a chance to see where we are and where we're heading.